Hello and welcome to the summary show. This week we will focus on the Odyssey. Odysseus was a brave and strong hero who fought long and hard to get home after being drafted into the Trojan War and winning it for the Achaeans. It took him 10 years after the war to get home to his loyal wife and son, and he never stopped fighting to reach home. Being away from home for 20 years can change a person, and Odysseus was changed into a brave hero with the help of the gods. Poseidon was determined to kill Odysseus, and fighting to keep himself alive against a god made him stronger and a better hero. Athene helped him survive and strengthened him every step of the way, making him a stronger and better hero.
His story opened at Calypso's island of Ogygia, where Odysseus was being held captive by the immortal nymph who wanted him to become immortal and live with her forever. Hermes helped him be free of this imprisonment after being imprisoned for 7 years with Calypso.
After being freed from Calypso's island, he built a ship to sail home, but Poseidon sends a big storm Odysseus' way to wreck his ship. He then landed on the Phoenicians' land and met a girl named Nausicaa. Nausicaa brings Odysseus to the royal palace, and he receives a warm welcome from the king and queen.
First, Odysseus tells of his encounter with the Lotus Eaters. Odysseus and his men land on the Lotus Eaters' island, and his men eat the lotus flowers, which was addicting and made the men lose the thought of them returning home. Odysseus ties up his men and puts them on his ship so that they can get back on track to getting home. This was a big part of the Odyssey, and it was a challenge they had to overcome.
He talks about his adventure with the Cyclops after he talks about the Lotus Eaters. Polyphemus, son of Poseidon, caught Odysseus and some of his crew eating his food in his cave. He imprisoned them and plans to eat them. The crew is terrified, but brave Odysseus develops a plan and stabs Polyphemus in the eye after getting him drunk, so that way he is not conscious of what is going on. After stabbing his eye out, he has his men ride out underneath Polyphemus' sheep in the morning, and he announces his name as he sails away. Before now, he had said that his name was Nobody, so that none of the other Cyclopses would come and save now blinded Polyphemus. As he was leaving, his pride tempts him enough that he announces his name, and he is cursed by Polyphemus, and Poseidon, his father, will make his journey off of this, as revenge as harming his son.
Then Odysseus and his men came to the island of Aeolea, where they were entertained for a full month. When Odysseus asked to leave the island, he was denied nothing, and given a leather bag in which the king had imprisoned all the winds. When they departed, the king, who had been made the keeper of the winds, gave them a wind that took them so far they were near their own land. Odysseus' men were curious as to what the rich king had given Odysseus. They opened the bag of winds while he was sleeping, thinking it was treasure. The winds that escaped the bag blew them all the way back out to the Aeolian Islands.
Then Odysseus and his men encountered the Laestrygonians. The Laestrygonians eat 4 out of his 5 ships and the men on those ships. Odysseus faces a big loss that is hard for him, but he overcomes it. He carries on with his journeys.
Then Odysseus discusses his run-in with the mortal sorceress Circe. Circe tricks Odysseus' crew into drinking wine that she offers them, and because of their gluttony, they are turned into pigs. Hermes, however, talks to Odysseus and gives him a potion that allows him to not be affected by Circe's spell that turns him into pigs. After spending some time with Circe, his men are turned back into his crew, and they can continue on their journey to reach home.
Odysseus then talks about his trip to the underworld, when he talks to all the ghosts of his friends who died in the Trojan War, and then talks to Tiresias about what he should do when he gets home. Agamemnon warns him to quietly return home because his wife may be loyal to him. After receiving advice from the dead, he continues on his journey.
He continues his story by discussing his dangerous run-in and the decision he had to make when handling the 2 monsters, Scylla and Charybdis. It was a very narrow strait that he had to pass through, and he decided to go by Scylla, and he lost some of his crew, and Scylla is actually the dangerous sea monster that eats all that she sees. But because they had a run-in with Scylla, they avoided Charybdis. And Charybdis is similar to a whirlpool, and they were able to continue on their journey after making that difficult decision, meaning only a few crew members were lost, not the entire crew.
After encountering Scylla and Charybdis, his crew eat the cattle of Helios. They have these precious sheep and cattle of Helios, and if they eat the cattle, then they will be harshly punished. As men are starving, they have nothing to eat, so they end up eating the cattle of Helios. Helios gets very upset and curses them, and some of Odysseus' men get killed. Then they have to sail back through Charybdis and Scylla, and the ship gets wrecked, and he has to go back and be with Calypso for 7 years again.
Odysseus was returned to Ithaca by the Phoenicians. Athene appeared to Odysseus, and they made a long plan to destroy the suitors. Athene disguised Odysseus as an old beggar, so he would not be recognized. They hid the Phoenician gifts in a cave, and Odysseus left to find his loyal swineherd. When Eumaeus, the loyal swineherd, sees Odysseus, he does not know it is his master, and welcomes him to his home willingly. After a few nights at Eumaeus' house, Athene sent Odysseus' son, Telemachus, home. Upon his arrival, Odysseus revealed his identity, and they conspired to kill the suitors and take back their home together.
Odysseus goes back to his castle disguised as a beggar and has to handle the suitors' abuse as they throw stools at him and abuse him verbally. After being abused by the suitors and patiently waiting to kill them, he schemes with his son and eventually destroys all of the suitors mercilessly, and then hangs on loyal maids who betrayed Penelope.
Odysseus now tries to be with his wife, who is still unconvinced. He reveals his identity by a scar and their marriage by that he crafted out of an olive tree. After they made up, Odysseus announced his return home to Ithaca and lived out his days with his loyal wife and son as king.
All of these trials show that Odysseus was a very brave and strong man. He fought in a war for 10 years and then had to make the long journey back home. His journey took him 10 years as well. Odysseus was away from home 20 full years, and this had a large impact on his son, wife, and his home. He did finally reach home, though, and encountered the suitors, who were trying to take his palace. He killed all the suitors and gained his wife and home back. Odysseus was a very brave and strong man, and this story has a large impact on the rest of writing that followed.